Greetings, my fellow decrepits, invalids, and other sick people. I hope that you're doing well today. So I wanted to make a video talking about maintaining relationships with our family and friends when we're dealing with a chronic illness or health issues in general. So we're going to cover some of the difficulties of maintaining those relationships, as well as throw out a few recommendations on how we can try to continue to foster those relationships despite everything we have going on. So with that in mind, let's get started. So why is it difficult to maintain relationships with a chronic illness to begin with? I think for most people, this will be fairly self-explanatory, but just a quick review. The obvious would be that your life, in many cases, has been drastically turned upside down. Now, obviously, this can depend, it can vary greatly depending on the severity of your symptoms and your specific illness. But in general, if you're dealing with some kind of illness that is debilitating in any way, it tends to, number one, consume your energy. Number two, make just daily activities more challenging in general. And three, I think it just simply makes it harder to relate to people. I know for myself this year, it hasn't so much been that people are unable or unwilling to maintain those relationships, but the capacity in which I'm able to engage with them has significantly changed. So, a year and a half ago, if I had friends that I could have gone and played Frisbee with, or gone on a hike with, gone for a run, etc., some of my normal activities I'm now unable to do. And so that automatically makes it more difficult. But even if you're not like an overly active person and like your hobbies aren't necessarily sports per se, there's still a great difficulty in navigating day-to-day life. I know for myself, there were so many days where it's like people wanted to hang out or have a family get together, and I just didn't think that I was going to be able to stay out of bed long enough to engage with people. And so there were definitely times where people would engage or try to engage. There were plenty of times where we'd have friends over and my wife and the kids would hang out with them, and I'm back in the bedroom laying down because I don't feel good. So sometimes, depending on how difficult your symptoms are, even if someone comes to you and wants to still be involved in your life, it can be difficult to have a relationship if you can't get out of bed. Now, again, for some people, it might not be that severe, but for me, it certainly was. And so I think that in general, any kind of health issue is going to have some impact on your relationships around you and with the people you're close to. It's just simply going to vary person to person. And that can be really challenging. It can be really hard and start to make you feel very isolated very quickly. And so that's kind of what we want to get into today in this video, is talk about, like I think we all understand health issues can have an impact on your relationships. So now we want to switch gears and think more about how can we try to maintain relationships and maybe even foster new ones, even if we're going through some kind of health crisis. So let's get into some ways that we can help encourage those relationships. And one thing to keep in mind as we get into this topic a little more is that when you start to feel isolated from your family and friends, you need to remember that it's not their fault that the relationships are more challenging to engage in right now. Obviously, health issues are an unfortunate struggle that some of us have to go through, but it is not the fault of your family and friends. And in most cases, they're still going to want to hang out with you and spend time with you. It gets challenging when there's this obstacle in the way. So just remember, it's not their fault, and give them some grace as they also extend grace to you. So just keep that in mind. Now, how do we stay connected with our family and friends while we're dealing with a health issue? So the good news is that we live in the modern world. We have all kinds of technology that allows us to stay connected. We have cell phones, we have things like Zoom, we have online chat rooms, video games, you can stay in contact with family and friends. There's so many ways now that we can still have relationships with people. Obviously, none of that comes anywhere close to face-to-face contact. And in the modern world, I think that we don't get enough face-to-face contact to begin with. And so when you take even more of that away because of a health issue, I think that has a huge impact on our mental health, our self-esteem, and just how we picture our relationships in general. So with that, technology is amazing. But whenever possible, you do want to try and find those ways to still have that face-to-face interaction with family and friends. Now, this is the bad news, I guess. If you're lucky, family and friends will reach out to you and come to you and come in and check on you. But that may not always be the case. And so what I've found sometimes is, although you're the one going through the health crisis, sometimes you have to be the one to initiate having conversations and having relationship with your family and friends. Now that seems a little backwards, but let me explain it like this. I don't think that family and friends are sitting there, like if Ryan's going through a health crisis, I don't think my family and friends are going, man, Ryan's really struggling right now. I don't want to take the time to go see him. I got too much on my schedule. I really think that that's not the case for most people. I think most people, what's really going on in their minds is they're thinking about how would it be beneficial for me to help Ryan. They're thinking about how can I interact with him, because I think a lot of people don't know where to start. I don't think that they don't want to help or they don't want to have a relationship. I think it's just they don't know where to start. And so for all my family and friends that know me, I went from being fairly outgoing, being on my feet a lot, going, hanging out with friends and family on a pretty much weekly basis, to all of a sudden I'm not doing anything. And so I think people just don't understand. They don't understand where you're at. And I think sometimes they also want to give you space, because anytime you're going through a health issue, it is very personal. And for some people, they want to keep it isolated to their family, and they don't want to broadcast their health issues. Most people aren't going to be like me, I guess, and start talking about all my health issues on my video. But for most people, I think that there's sort of it's a respect that they're trying to respect you and give you space to go through it. And so sometimes I think you have to be willing to reach out and say, hey, Steve, I'd really love to see you. I'm not able to get out of bed really right now, but I could probably make it to the couch for an hour. I could really use some company. And your friend Steve is probably more than likely going to be more than willing to come over and hang out with you. So I think sometimes you have to be willing to take the initiative. And I know that's super counterintuitive, because when we're sitting there lying in bed, you just are like, everyone should come to me, everyone should help me. And I understand that, because you're the one that physically can't move or is having all these issues. But I think people they want to give you space. So keep that in mind when you're navigating relationships, and maybe, have a little bit of courage and take the initiative. And obviously that requires you to be vulnerable, but that I think your vulnerability is a very clear invitation to your friends and family of just, hey, I'm having a hard time right now, could really use some company. And so that would be my advice, would be to be willing to take the initiative. I think you'll see that have a large impact on your relationships. Now, my final point I want to make has to do with being thankful for those people that are putting in a really good effort to still be in contact with you, despite everything going on. For me, I had so many people that continued to reach out on a regular basis. Specifically, my parents, close family, close friends. I was very fortunate in that I had so many people that were willing to continue reaching out to me. So be thankful for those people, and maybe even let them know that you're thankful. That's probably something I could have worked on a lot more and could still work on, is just letting those people know how thankful I am that they were around and that they were there for me. I think that helped out a ton, especially at the worst moments. You spend so much time by yourself and so much time in misery, and having those people that were still close to me and supporting me has made the world of difference. So be thankful for those people. And I would say too, a very important thing is to focus on the immediate relationships in your life. And generally speaking, what I mean that is that it's probably going to be the people directly in your household. It may extend a little bit beyond that, but I think there needs to be a focus on those relationships. And so for my wife and I feel like we've grown a lot this year. I mean, naturally, you walk through the trial together, and that's kind of when you see how you really function as a couple, and how strong your relationship is. So I think that for us, this has been a challenging year, but it's also been rewarding in the fact that I feel like we've come through this closer than we were prior to it. And so I think some of that requires intentionality on our part. I guess what I want to say is it's very easy, anytime things are going wrong in life, it's very easy to start getting angry with the people that you are closest to. And that's not going to help anything. Everyone's already under enough stress. They're already, you might be dealing with financial difficulties. There's the stress of diagnosis, and there's so many factors to one's health. So give each other patience in that regard, and really focus in on trying to make those relationships strong and make them work, and really show those people that you are appreciative of them. Because those are the relationships that come first and foremost. Those are the ones that, you wake up in the morning, and those are the people that you have the most contact with. So focus on those relationships and be grateful for them. And I think that's a really great place to start. So that's kind of what I've got on this subject. Obviously, there are so many avenues you could explore on this. I mean, obviously, absolutely use technology when applicable. It's a phenomenal tool when you are unable to get out of bed or you can't really engage in life normally. So use technology. But I focused a lot in this video more on the trying to have those face-to-face relationships still, because I think that's the most important. Because I will tell you, there were lots of very encouraging text messages throughout my health crisis. Text messages never quite have that same text messages never quite have the same impact on us relationally as that face-to-face contact. So I really highly encourage finding ways to make that work, and just know that it may take some initiative on your end to get that ball rolling. So I hope this was encouraging to you. I hope that you are healthy as you can be. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up for today, and take care of yourselves and continue to fight the good fight. We'll see you next time.